Hi, it's Drew back again with Princess Craft RV, and today I'm going to show you how to operate these systems and accessories here on the Retro 193 by Riverside RV. That was a mouthful. So starting right up front here, we are going to start with the loading and unloading procedure. What we are going to do is we are first going to slide this latch lock into the unlocked position. From there, we are going to raise the jack generally 3 inches above our ball and drop. Of course, we then center ourselves underneath the coupler and then lower ourselves back down on top. Once fully seated on that ball and drop, we can go ahead and slide this latch lock forward, paying special attention that both of our tabs here are fully engaged in the frame. Now, not something that is included with your purchase, but definitely recommended is going to go ahead and use a secondary pin here on that latch lock to help aid for safety concerns and things like that. So we don't want that rattling loose potentially going down the road. Next up, we're going to take our tow chains. We are going to cross those underneath the coupler and hook onto the receiver of the vehicle. Now, it is state law in Texas that these tow chains do, again, need to be crossed underneath the coupler, as well as it is illegal for them to make contact with the pavement at any time. So kind of skate that line of having enough room to make your turns left or right, but not so much room that they, again, may make contact with the pavement. Riding right next to those tow chains is a very important piece of safety equipment. This is going to be your emergency breakaway cable. It is very important that this rides with a separate connection point on the receiver. In the event that you have failure with either your coupler or your tow chains, as the two vehicles separate, this is going to act like a ripcord to the electric brake system. Once that cord is pulled, again, that's going to apply full 12 volts to the brakes, avoiding a runaway camper scenario. So again, very important that you do use a carabiner or quick link, whichever you have, to attach this separately to the receiver. Also up front here is going to be your 7-way plug. This is going to plug into the corresponding receptacle there on the bumper. This is going to give you full function to your vehicle's braking system, lights, charging system, things like that. So very important piece of equipment. And again, you want to make sure that you have enough room to safely make your turns left to right, but not so much room that this could make contact with the pavement. Hopping up here, we have your electric tongue jack. Nice feature, has a light, gives you a point of reference if you are backing up to the unit after dark or doing, again, any coupling or uncoupling after dark. That's going to aid in that. And then you have a clearly marked button here, retract, extend. Of course, you can use that accordingly. In the event that you do have like a power loss situation, you run out of battery power, things are not functioning properly here on the jack, you also do have a manual crank handle and a manual drive. What you would do is remove this plug right here up top. You're going to expose a 3/4 inch drive nut that would correspond well with this crank handle. Hopping back here to your two 20-pound propane cylinders. These are going to be full for you at time of delivery. They are separated by a T-bar and a regulator in between. So whichever way that this is directionalized, consider that to be your primary tank. If you go ahead and use that tank in its entirety, it will automatically switch over to the secondary tank as long as that valve is in the open position. Now, if in that time we want to take your primary tank and have that filled, we would then switch over there to that secondary tank, unscrew your pigtail here, and then of course we got to loosen this oversized wing nut. Do our best to kind of rotate this out of the way, and then of course you can remove the tank to have it serviced. When returning the tank, same thing in reverse. Just make sure that you're catching these little tabs here and tighten that wing nut down nice and snug. Tighten your propane pigtail here, again nice and snug. And then we're going to switch back to your primary tank and then go ahead and open up that service valve right there on the top. Now, this is all covered going down the road from road debris, rock chips, things like that with this propane cover. Now, the way that this sits on top of those tanks is very important. You want to make sure that this door is opening towards the camper. That way, if it were to catch wind, it has the less likelihood of actually blowing off. So what you're going to do is, again, slip this over top. Now there's nothing to really keep this on there, although I've never seen one catch wind and blow off. It would have to be a very kind of unlucky gust for that to happen. Once this is in place, we can go ahead and use these thumb screws to tighten down that lid. Of course, we don't want that flopping open going down the road. And again, once those are in place, you just go ahead and tighten that up. Now that leads us back here to our brand new Interstate deep cycle battery. This is a lead acid or wet cell battery. What that means for you, it is going to carry maintenance. Once every 90 days, we're going to remove these vent panels here on top of the battery, and we're going to check the water level. So there's going to be a clear marked water line underneath those panels, and we are going to use distilled water to keep that nice and full. This is, of course, covered with a battery box lid. Very easy to install. You want to just line everything up, and sometimes it can be tough to kind of bend those wires out of the way. And you have your strapping here, and very simply just going to pull that tight. That's not going to go anywhere for you. Moving here onto the side of the camper, first up is going to be our stabilizer jacks. Now we have stabilizer jacks on all four corners of the unit. Just a reminder, these are for stabilization, they're not for leveling. So once we have leveled the camper both front to back, left to right, we are then going to go ahead and run these down. Again, a 3/4 inch stabilizer jack crank handle is included with the unit. Very important that we come down, make contact with the pavement, maybe a quarter turn more. Same on the way up, no real need to bear down on these, they're not going to go anywhere on you. Hopping up here to the large pass-through compartment here up front, you're going to find a tap light on either side of that compartment. What we are going to do is just push on the center of that lens to go ahead and turn that on and off. On all of these compartments, they are going to use a compartment hold open. Very important that you, again, kind of operate this with a light touch. These are kind of famous for kind of breaking as they get used, especially if they are used inappropriately. And then lock and key here on all of the compartments. Moving on down, we have your slide out. Now this particular camper utilizes the Schwintek system. What that means is you have two independently geared motors pushing that slide in and out. We're going to talk about not only the proper way to maintain that slide, but also the proper operation. So very important to operate the Schwintek system correctly or the slide out correctly. We want to make sure that we are opening it fully and closing it fully. We want to avoid short bursts or partial openings. The reason being is, again, you have two independently geared motors here. Those partial openings and short bursts can potentially throw that out of sync. What would happen is that slide would then bind in its opening and it's not going to go in or out. So again, very important, if you're running it out, go full out. You're running it in, come all the way in. Now you're going to adopt a 90-day maintenance schedule, not only with this slide, but with multiple components within the camper, and we're going to talk about those each separately. But here with the slide, it's very important that we do use a couple of products here. When it does come to lubricating these tracks here, which you have top to bottom, left to right, you're going to want to use a heavy-duty silicone spray to do so. This is, of course, an aerosol can. You're just going to spray that track down, top to bottom, left to right. You're going to do that every 90 days. Once you've done so, run that slide fully in, fully out to distribute that lubricant, and you're going to be good to go for the next 90 days. Now, also on that same schedule, it is very important that we do lubricate these slide seals. These do wrap 360 degrees around the slide, and we also have a set of seals not only on the outside but on the inside as well. We are again going to use a seal conditioner, slide out spray, and again an aerosol can will allow you to spray that, let it sit, wipe off any excess, and again you're going to be good for the next 90 days. Now also a very good time to talk about structural maintenance as well. That is also going to adopt that 90-day maintenance schedule. What we're going to do is, again, every 90 days we are going to inspect the seals of the unit. So anywhere where two pieces come together within the unit, you're going to find that there is some sort of sealant there. Generally here on the body, they're going to use a 100% silicone sealant. You can source that from any hardware store. And again, what we're looking for is any degradation or separation within that sealant, and we are going to touch up as necessary. On the roof, what you're going to find is generally a lap sealant. In this particular model, I believe they use Dicor for the roof membrane that they have on this unit, but you can always use a product that covers all the membranes like XTRM, something like that. Either way, all of those products are self-leveling, so if you do see any degradation in those seals up there on the roof, you're going to kind of use a heavy hand, use more than you might need, and it's going to kind of pull out and again cover any cracks, peeling, things like that. Moving on here, we have your refrigerator openings here, your vents I should say. Of course you have one down low, you have one up high. Now it is very important that we do protect those from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects, things like that. They would love nothing more to make this their new home. So generally we recommend these store-bought bug screens that correspond with these appliances, and those are available at our parts department. So other than that, you're going to remove these vents. We're going to do a visual inspection a couple times a year, make sure nothing's gotten in, make sure everything is still visually looks good. And when we go to replace this vent, it's very important that our hose is mounted or ran through one of these grates here. That way, if there is any condensation from the appliance itself, it can drain to the outside world here. In this particular setup, we put the tabs up top first. We make sure those are fully seated. We're going to put our tabs there in the correct place and make sure that seat's flush. And this can be a little fiddly sometimes, but with everything there nice in place, we're going to give those a half turn. That's going to actually lock that vent cover on. I always go back and give it an extra tug, make sure that it is in fact not going anywhere, and you're good to go. Moving on here, coming down here, next up is going to be our wastewater holding tank and our dump valves. A little hard to see, but if I kind of crawl underneath the slide here, further back we have our gray water dump valve. It is color coded, gray for gray water. That's going to be anything that comes from the sink or the shower. And then up front here we have our black water drain. Of course, that's anything that comes from the toilet. Now, very important that these remain in the closed position. We're going to use the monitor panel on the inside, and we're only going to dump as necessary. It becomes very important to keep these tanks, especially that black water tank, in as wet or flowing condition as we can. Of course, we have solid body waste, toilet paper within that tank, and we want that tank to be evacuated as easily as possible. And again, keeping that in the as wet condition as we can is going to aid in that. In between the two, we have our bayonet fitting. This cap is going to connect or screw on the very same way that your sewage hose does. Of course, you have 4 prongs here along the outside of that tube, and we're just going to put that in the put the keyholes in the halfway position there, give it a quarter turn. That's going to go ahead and lock it on. Same is going to go for your sewage hose as well. Of course, you can see the same keyholes. That's going to lock on no problem. Now, when it does come to dump this, a very popular option is going to be dumping your black water first, allow that to drain fully. We're then going to close that black water valve because we want to avoid any cross-contamination between the two systems. And then we're going to go ahead and open up that gray water. Allow that gray water, the relatively cleaner of the two, to go ahead and rinse your sewage hose and any shared plumbing. Again, very important that we do not have these open at the same time. And to open them, it is just going to be a 6-inch pull, in this case on the black water towards us. On the gray water, it's going to be a 6-inch pull towards the front of the coach. Moving on out of here to the water heater here. This is a 6-gallon capacity water heater, is dual source. So what that means is it does have a 110 volt heating element, as well as propane gas with a direct spark 12 volt ignition. What that allows you to do is operate this whether you're staying in the capacity of an RV park, or if you're out there boondocking in the middle of nowhere, you will still have hot water. So from a manufacturer standpoint, it is very important that you do operate and maintain this correctly, not only from a safety standpoint, but from a sanitary standpoint as well. So anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, it becomes very important that we do drain this separate of the rest of the system. What you would do is you would, of course, depressurize the unit first, and to do that, you are going to cut the overall inflow of water to the unit as a whole. So if we're using the city water connection, it's as simple as turning the valve off. If we're using the 12-volt water pump, we're just going to turn that in the off position. So once we've done so, we are going to go ahead onto the inside of the unit, or we can feel free to use the outside shower. It does not matter, but we're going to pick the hot side of that fixture and we're going to turn that on. We're going to see the remaining pressure within the lines in the unit itself kind of blow off from that location. Once we cease to see water coming from that fixture, that is our indicator that we are ready to drain this. So once the unit is depressurized, we're going to come here with an 1.16" socket and extension, and we are going to remove this drain plug here. Now this drain plug pulls double duty. It's not only a drain plug, but it is also your anode rod. What an anode rod does is, it acts like a magnet for hard water deposits, calcification, things like that. They deposit on the end of that, or on that anode rod, eat away at that as opposed to the inside of the tank itself. So generally we find that our customers will get a year or two out of service, a year or two of service out of their anode rod before replacing. Starts out about 3/4 inch by 12 inch. By the time it needs to be replaced, it's going to be about the size of a pencil, look very decrepit, and it should be pretty evident to you that it does need to be replaced. So we've drained the unit, we're ready for storage. When it does come to returning the unit back to service, the manufacturer again has kind of a specific set of instructions on how to do so. Number one, return that anode rod if you have not already. You may have to give it a couple wraps with some Teflon tape. That's to be expected. With that anode rod in place, we are then going to need to prime or feed 6 gallons of water to the unit itself before we start heating that water. So what we're going to do is we are going to repressurize the system. Again, if we're on city water connection, as simple as turning that valve on, using the 12-volt water pump, just flip that switch on. Once we've done so, we're again going to go to the hot side of any fixture within the unit. We're going to turn that on. What we're going to see this time is something a little bit different. You're going to see a lot more water come from the fixture, obviously, but that flow is going to be very interrupted. It's going to be very spitty, airy, however you want to think about it. What it's doing is it's displacing the air that is now within the tank and replacing it with water. Generally it takes 5 or so minutes for that tank to fill up. We know that that tank is full once that flow at that fixture normalizes and runs true. So once that happens, we can then go ahead and start heating our water. Now, if we're going to use that 110-volt heating element, what we're going to do is turn this toggle switch into the on position there. That is the only location for that 110-volt heating element. What they do is they separate the switches. Your propane heating element or your propane switch is going to be on the inside, and we're certainly going to get eyes on that once we do get to the inside of the unit. Now also, this is a propane burning appliance, so it becomes very important to protect that from the intrusion of mud daubers, flying insects, things like that as well. Again, we're going to recommend these store-bought screens directly designed to do that. When not servicing the unit, it's important that we keep this door in the closed position. What you're going to do is line this tab up with the opening, give that a slight pull, and rotate it, and that's going to keep that door nice and secure when you're going down the road. Hopping up here, we have a cable inlet or a standard RG6 cable fitting. What this is going to allow you to do is feed either a part cable service or an aftermarket satellite package into the unit. So again, some higher end campgrounds will provide that service, and just about every satellite provider offers a satellite package geared towards RVers. Again, either way, this is the inlet. This will terminate at the designated TV area of the camper. Right next to that, we have a solar connection. This particular unit uses the Furon plug here. So pick up a Furon portable solar panel, and that will have that kind of proprietary connection and allow you to make that connection. You can then take that solar panel, position it out in the direct sunlight, and take advantage of that with this onboard plug. To the right of that a little further, we have your city water connection. Now this is what you're going to use in the capacity of an RV park, or if you have full-time running water, we're going to go ahead and utilize this city water connection. Water pressure becomes very important when we do talk about city water. It's very important that we regulate that pressure down, generally lower than what comes directly from the fixture. So to do so, we're going to use a water pressure regulator. This particular water pressure regulator is going to keep that water pressure below 50 psi, which is well within this unit's rating. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook this up as close to the water source as we can. Generally, that's going to be directly on the fixture itself. We're going to screw that on. We are then going to take our spigot side of the hose, of course, make that connection there. And then lastly, we make our trailer mount connection by holding this in place and rotating that connection there. So very simple to do. Make sure that's nice and tight. Make sure you're not having any leakage. I have heard, dependent on the camper and the hose manufacturer, you again may need a couple wraps of Teflon tape to keep that from dripping, although there is going to be a hose gasket in there to help aid in that. Next up is going to be your 30 amp 110 volt power supply. This is your cord, comes with the unit, generally between 25 and 30 feet in length. Does only plug into the camper one way. So if we go ahead and lift the door, remove this plug, we're going to see that we have two slanted receptacles and one L shape. We are just going to line that up accordingly here on the camper side, and we are going to push that straight in, give that an 1/8 inch turn to the right, that locks it on. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down and keep things nice and secure and tight. So we want to make sure that that's not wiggling loose or anything like that, so that kind of double locking mechanism is a very solid feature. Now with any unit that I deliver, I recommend the addition of a 30 amp surge protector. It's very important. A lot of RV parks out there can have used and abused power poles, not generally the best maintained setups. Either way, the only way to really protect our brand new unit is going to be with a 30 amp surge protector. We recommend that again with every unit that we deliver. If you have any questions on the products we recommend or how to use them further, don't hesitate to give our parts department a call. They would be more than happy to go ahead and educate you on what we recommend and how to use it. Now, when it comes to plugging this into your power source, your receptacle, whatever, it is a 30 amp connection. We've already established that. We do include a 30 to 15 amp reducer. This particular reducer is what comes with the unit. This is what they call a puck style reducer. This is really good to operate low draw appliances like pre-cooling the refrigerator. You want to turn some lights on while you're prepping the unit for your camping trip. This works well for that. What this does not work well for is kind of higher draw appliances like running the air conditioner, microwave, things like that. If that's what you're looking to do, it's going to be our recommendation as a dealership that you do go ahead and upgrade to what we would consider a dog bone style reducer. Accomplishes the same thing, is just separated by about 12 inches worth of cord. It's going to dissipate heat a whole lot better and allow you to run those low draw appliances. Again, keep in mind that when you are running on 15 amp service, you're going to want to be kind of picky on what you run together. So you don't want to overtax that system. So if you're running the air conditioner, make sure you're kind of running light on everything else. Making our way here to the rear of the unit, of course we have our two bumper here, removable caps on each side of the bumper that will allow you to go ahead and store your sewage hose in there, which is nice, or any long storage that you may need. You can go ahead and use that two bumper to do so. We also have a rear storage compartment here. Excellently located for again maybe your freshwater hose, power cord, things like that. Again, we're going to see that same latch to hold that open. This particular one not only has a latch here, but it also is with a key, and we're going to talk about which keys operate these compartments here in just a few minutes. Spare tire here, full size spare on a steely rim, but it is the same size that you have on the coach. Up high, we not only see our marker lights, but we do see a pre-wire for a Furon branded camera. What that's going to allow you to do as a consumer is you can go ahead and add that camera fairly easy anywhere down the road. It becomes very easy to, again, take advantage of that pre-wire and add that camera to allow you to have a full rear view when going down the road. Now what we have here is going to be your outside shower. Nothing too crazy to operate this appliance. Of course, you have access to hot and cold water there. You have that kind of standard RV style sprayer with a on and off port. What that's going to allow you to do is conserve water consumption. Generally that's hot water because you only have access to 6 gallons at a time. That will allow you to turn this head on and off without changing your flow here. Now this does wrap around and all store self-contained in this compartment. And it is a very nice usable feature that our customers do enjoy. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to remove my little reminder here, and we are going to take a look up here under the J-wrap. You're going to find your low point drains. These are the lowest point in the unit's plumbing. What that becomes important for is, again, I've mentioned it previously, is anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, it's very important that we do drain all of the water from the unit. We're going to use those low point drains to drain all of the to and from plumbing. So everything in between water source and fixture is going to be drained via this location. And again, we're going to do that anytime we're going to be storing the unit for more than 7 days. To do so, it's just a plug style screw-on plug. You're just going to generally be able to remove that without the use of any tools. And then a little further behind that, we have a quick connect propane fitting. That's a direct connection to the propane supply of the unit. What that's going to allow you to do is go ahead and add a secondary or a propane appliance, outside grill, propane heater, propane fire pit, things like that. It will allow you to tie into your propane supply up front. And again, this is going to utilize a quick, what they call a quick connect fitting. So what you're going to do is make sure that valve is in the off position. You're going to slide that collar back, of course, insert the male fitting completely. Once you've done so, that's going to snap back, locking that fitting in place. And then we have a valve here, and with any valve, if you're with the flow, you're going to be on, against the flow is going to be off. Very important that when you're going down the road, we go ahead and make sure that that plug is in place. That's going to keep any dirt or debris from depositing itself within the fitting. Moving forward a little bit, we are going to talk about your tires, lug nuts, things like that. These tires carry a max tire pressure rating of 60 psi. It's very important with trailer tires that we do maintain that max tire pressure rating. Again, that's going to be 60 psi for this particular unit. You can see also that we have one of your hubcaps here removed. It's very important that we follow the manufacturer's retorque procedure of the lug nuts. So they've been torqued down to 100 foot-pounds here in our shop. Manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure the first 15, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. It's very important that we do go ahead and torque those down. To do so, we are going to, of course, use a torque wrench to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. They have many different styles of torque wrench. This is a digital torque wrench. You can, of course, use a click style. Anything that is going to go ahead and measure that level of torque is what we're going to need. So with 5 lugs or 5 studs, we're going to go in a star pattern, and we're going to go around in that star twice, making sure that that is torqued. So again, you can see that pattern there. And we would, of course, just go around in that star pattern one more time and finish up. Once we've done so, we're going to take our hubcap, and these are pressure fitted, so you're going to line that up as well as you can. Make sure you hear that nice snap. And again, we're going to do that to each tire in that initial intervals of 10, 25, 50, and 100 miles. And then further, at the start of each trip thereon after, we do want to make sure they are maintaining that level of torque. Also, it's worth mentioning that you are going to want to have the bearings on these axles inspected either once a year or every 12,000 miles. Hopping up here, we have your freshwater connection here. So this is where we're going to fill that onboard water tank. When utilizing this freshwater connection, generally you're going to be off-grid or boondocking. So you would need that 12-volt water pump to go ahead and pressurize that system, draw that water up to the tank, ultimately, or draw that water up from the tank to the fixtures to make it usable. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick your drinking water hose directly in that orifice there. You're going to fill it up till you are satisfied. Once satisfied, we just go ahead and replace the cap. Now I'm going to hop down low here again, and this is going to be a tricky angle to get, but we want to get eyes here on the freshwater tank drain. So I'm going to move out of the way there, and you can see off of the bottom of the tank there you have a little blue PEX line with, again, one of those caps in place. You are to drain that tank, you're going to have to crawl under there and remove that plug. And again, just a reminder, you're going to do that anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days. Now, once you've drained the unit, if you haven't physically replaced the water within the tank, you're not going to have to do that. So only when you've actually filled the tank are you going to have to drain the tank. Easy. So kind of to bring things full circle on how to drain the unit completely of water, because we kind of hit it in a reverse kind of motion. You would generally start with the freshwater drain if it's been in use. Again, if it hasn't been in use, don't worry about it. Then we're going to go a little further back. We're going to empty those low point drains. We're going to take both of those caps off of there. And then last but not least, we're going to finish up with the water heater, again, utilizing the procedure that we outlined initially with that. So once you've done all three of those things, there is, 99% of the water has been evacuated from the unit. It's going to be good to go for storage. Now, that is going to be the first step or the first leg of a winterization process. We're going to talk about that further when we get on the inside of the unit, but keep in mind that you do have to drain all of that water before you can do a proper winterization procedure. Kind of backtracking slightly, I guess starting up high, we have the awning lights, the speakers, things like that. We're going to get to the proper operation of those and show you the switches when we do get to the inside. You have a hood vent here. Very important that we do go ahead and open that hood vent before we prepare a meal. Very easy, just have a couple tabs here. You're going to lift those out of the way. And it is equally important that when we are traveling that we do remember to close that. Again, keep any road debris from making its way into the unit. Down a little further, we have a couple all-weather 110 volt 15 amp receptacles. You want to plug in, plug something in out here, charge a phone while you're using this space. Of course, that's going to make it easy to do so. And then further down, we have your furnace vent. Now, it becomes very important that, especially when we're utilizing this space, that we're not going to go ahead and block that vent off. We want to keep that appliance, excuse me, we want to keep that appliance breathing properly, and so bottom line, if you have like a lawn chair or something, keep this unrestricted. Also, like I've mentioned with all of the other propane appliances, it is very important that we protect this from the intrusion of mud daubers, flying insects, things like that, so make sure we are going to place that bug screen in the proper location. Controls for this is, of course, that's all going to be done on the inside. All you need to remember with this is don't restrict the flow from a maintenance standpoint. Again, not terribly much you're going to be doing, especially from this location. Standard RV style assist rail here. Of course, we have that in the closed position. It could also be folded against the body of the camper, whichever you choose. When utilizing it, it needs to be in the out position. It does lock in that out position, makes it slightly more secure. Now, we have your keys here with the unit. So what Riverside does is they have generally a one key system, which means is that the door keys are going to lock the compartments as well. You do have kind of one straggler here, and that's going to be for the outside shower. So this little silver key is going to be for the outside shower. Make sure you keep that in mind. You have two different locking mechanisms here on the entry door. The bottom one is going to be your deadbolt. That's going to lock slightly different than the latch lock. So you're going to put the key in, you're going to turn to the left, you're going to return to center. That's going to allow you to go ahead and remove the key. Same here in the unlock. In the unlock, of course, we go to the right, back to center, remove the key. Now, if you choose to utilize this latch lock, that's going to, you're going to enter the key, you are going to lock it, and then remove the key. So no need to return to center on that latch lock. Down low here, we have your Lippert steps here. These are pretty cool steps. They take it a step further than that kind of traditional RV step. Of course, they fold out. You can use them as so. No problems there. That's standard kind of 3-step, but they go one step further with this solid stance setup here. And they give you these legs. What that's going to do is going to stabilize these further, and they are adjustable. So if you're on uneven ground, you can go ahead and adjust those accordingly. So what you're going to do is remove the pin here. You're going to, you see you have 3 keeper holes here. You can kind of choose there on with the 3 holes where exactly you want to set those up for. We're going to, of course, do the same thing on both sets of legs. And then once we've done so, we're going to go ahead and fold it out, and you can see we still need to make up some ground clearance. So we have one more adjustment piece here where we can pick again a setting there on this side uses a spring-loaded pin to make it even easier. So what that does is, again, that makes that nice and secure. In the event that you have uneven ground, you can still adjust that accordingly. Moving on here, of course we have the other side, the corresponding side to the pass-through storage compartment. Again, that's going to utilize that same tap light that we saw initially in this presentation. And I think that just about covers it here on the couple things up front here actually. We have a little D-ring there. That becomes helpful if you want to go ahead and secure some equipment to that or hook up a pet, something like that. You can use that D-ring to do so. One thing we also missed is going to be the porch light here. Again, that's going to aid if you are doing any maintenance here after dark up here on the tongue. Switch for that light is going to be right there on the bottom of the fixture. And I do believe that covers it here on the exterior of the unit. Stay with us while we hop on the inside and take a look at those features. Hi, here we are on the inside of the Retro 193. We're going to start right up here by the bed. What you have on the under cabinet lighting is going to be that same push button style that we saw on the exterior of the unit. You also, of course, have cabinetry above and beside the bed. Coming up further, we're going to find 2 15-amp outlets on either side of the bed. Also here on the passenger side of the bed, we're going to have a Furon speaker mount. That'd be an excellent addition if you want to go ahead and add that down the road. Of course, it's not included with your purchase, but they did give you the docking mount to go ahead and add that later. One thing that we want to talk about while we're over here is going to be the use of the emergency exit window. In the event that the entry door is blocked, you can still exit from this location. Of course, what you're going to do is remove the screen. This window would fully open like a doggy door, allowing you to, again, exit from this location. Can still operate like a normal window as it is here. It does only have that single position in that outward section. When closing it, you're just going to secure it there. Make sure that's nice and secure so that's not going to blow open going down the road. Also here, we'll talk about the shades that you have are going to be that standard aluminum mini blind kind of setup. I find most people are very familiar with the way that these work. So one cool feature you have on the underside here, if we go ahead and lift up on that bed, you do see some storage there. Very efficient use of space. Of course, it will aid in kind of stowing some of those larger stuff, maybe some extra bedding, things like that. So a really cool feature. That's going to give us a good view of the rest of the windows throughout the camper. They're going to utilize this style. What you're going to have is a spring lock here. That's going to allow you to go ahead and loosen that or pull that towards you and open the window by sliding it towards the front of the camper. On the way closed, you're going to want to make sure that you go ahead and lift that locking tab up as well until that window seats fully. Right here inside the entry door, quite a bit going on. We have your convenience center or your courtesy panel here. This is going to give you a real-time readout of where your tanks sit and level of full. You're going to have a couple light switches, water heater, water pump, slide out and awning switches as well. Starting right up front here, we have your tank monitors as well as your battery. Now, if you look here, we of course have your battery indicator, fresh, black, gray, and galley. Now, this is a pretty generic panel, so keep in mind that there is no secondary gray water tank within this unit. that galley option is going to be kind of null and void in this scenario. Next up is gray water. That's going to indicate empty to us. Black water is going to indicate empty as well. Fresh water is sitting at 2/3 full, and battery is going to read full. Now battery will read full anytime you are plugged into shore power. To get an accurate readout of where your battery sits, you're going to go ahead and unplug and then test from this location. Right beside that, we have your light switch. This first switch is going to be for the awning lights. We saw those lit up on the exterior of the camper. Those lights do run the full tube of the awning, or the full width of the awning. And then next up is going to be the entry lights. Just one common switch to control just about all of the overhead ceiling lights, with the exception of the cabinet, or the under cabinet lighting here above the bed, and the under cabinet lighting here in the kitchen. Dropping down here, we have the propane water heater switch, or the propane side of the water heater. Just an on-off toggle switch here. Now pay attention to this fault light. What's going to happen is once we turn that switch on, that's going to start the cycle, the lighting cycle of the, again, the propane side of the water heater. It will try and light 3 times. If it does not light by the end of that 3rd try, it's going to quit trying, and then we'll light that fault light. What to keep in mind when you are operating these propane appliances throughout the unit is that if the unit has been sitting for any period of time, generally that propane within the line has evacuated and been replaced with air. So these appliances, especially again if it's been sitting, may not light the first try or the first lighting cycle. In the event that that happens with this particular appliance, just go ahead and flip that switch off, go ahead and flip it back on. As long as you have propane in the tank and the service valve in the on position, if that is the issue, it will light on the first try of the 2nd cycle. And then right beside that, we have your water pump switch. Easy on off. The light, of course, indicates that it is on. We then have your slide in and out switch here. Now, again, just to remind you, we do want to come fully in until that stops, fully out until it stops. Avoid partial opening, short bursts, anything like that. Awning, retract and extend. It's up to you. You do not have to go full pass with that awning. If you want to kind of follow that sun in the sky throughout the day, you can always do so. So it does not matter how far you open or close that. Of course, it does need to be fully closed before going down the road. Above my head, we're going to see a vent here above the bed. Now, this isn't wired for a fan or anything like that, although it does just going to give you some nice airflow, again, above the bed. Biggest thing with that is making sure it is closed before going down the road. You don't want it to catch air or anything like that. And then further up here, we have your 9-volt smoke alarm, the same variant you're going to find at your house. Runs on a 9-volt battery. It'll let you know when it needs to be changed, so keep a spare with you. That way it's not indicating throughout the night that it is low. Again, all apologies to kind of bounce back and forth, but we do have your fire extinguisher here. It does have a green test tab on the top. It's very important that we do test all of our safety equipment, including the fire extinguisher, smoke alarm, and carbon monoxide LP leak detectors. For this particular appliance, we're going to go ahead and push that green tab down. If it springs back, that means we have life still left in the appliance. If it stays depressed, it's time to replace. So here in the kitchen area, starting up top here, we have the Furon microwave. This is going to work very indicative of just about every other microwave you've ever seen. Preset food temps up top. Of course, your time and temperature down below that. Turntable style. Again, nothing really too terribly much different than what you've probably seen before. We have your hood, fan, and light here. Again, very kind of straightforward. It does that kind of nice streamlined stainless steel look, but in terms of function, it's going to be very much as to what you're used to. Cooktop and oven, covered by, of course, that glass top. If we go ahead and lift that up and fold that out of the way, we, of course, have your burners here, as well as a piezo igniter. So what we're going to do is go ahead and turn the dial to the flame. Go ahead and light each one of those burners. Very easy and straightforward. Again, we're rotating that igniter towards the right and allowing that to light up. Now we can also take advantage of the igniter here when we do light the oven. It's going to run slightly different. So we're again going to turn to the flame here, but we're going to push that in. So essentially we're lighting a pilot first. We're going to hold that in for a spell, generally 15 to 30 seconds before we start igniting. We're going to go ahead and turn the igniter. Once we inspect a pilot light down below here, we're of course still going to be holding this. Once we see that pilot light lit, we're going to give it about 3 seconds to heat up that thermocoupler, and then we can release and choose our temperature there along the dial. Beside that, we have a 3-way switch. Of course, middle's off. Up is going to give us these fancy blue lighting, and down is going to not only give us that fancy blue lighting, but also going to light the oven as well. Excuse me. Down below here we have your furnace, blower motor. Essentially all your heat within the unit is going to come from this one central location. Does pick up and kind of move a lot of air, so I would expect that to be definitely satisfactory in keeping the temperature controlled within the unit. Hopping up here, not too terribly much more exciting stuff here in the kitchen. Of course, these underside cabinet lights again are going to need to be turned on and off by themselves. You do have a 15 amp outlet. Of course, nice large open bay sink, hot and cold. Again, pretty kind of standard stuff there. Coming down low, we have your fuse panel breaker box here. Everything we see here on the right side is going to be your automotive blade style fuses. Those are replaceable. Of course, it's our recommendation that you do keep a spare set. If you go to the auto parts store or the RV parts department, you can go ahead and generally pick up a variety pack of fuses that'll cover all your bases here. To the left side, we have your resettable 110 volt breakers. They are going to function very much like your breaker box that you have at home, and both sets are labeled in terms of function right beside their corresponding fuse and breaker. Down low here, we have our third and final piece of safety equipment here on the interior, which is going to be your LP leak and carbon monoxide detector. Now, it is very important that we again test every piece of our safety equipment before going down the road. This particular detector is wired into the 12 volt section of the camper, so there's no batteries to change or anything like that. It does have a test button on it. It will indicate an audible signal to you, letting you know that it is working properly. Now, hopping up here, we have your Suburban thermostat. This is, just to be clear, the thermostat for the furnace only. What we're going to do is just slide here along our comfort level. We can see our real-time temperature here. That's going to kick that furnace or that blower motor on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. Now, in a unit of this size, I would not be surprised if within that first 15 minutes of operation, it actually sets off that smoke alarm. That is totally acceptable by the manufacturer standing. As it runs, the efficiency rating goes way up. So again, within that first 15 minutes, do not be alarmed if it does, of course, set off that smoke alarm. Right above my head here, we're going to find the Furon air conditioner. Your controls are going to be right here on the unit itself. Of course, we have off and we have multiple fan speeds, as well as air conditioner, low, medium, and high fan speeds, and then again, just standalone fan. So very easy. We of course have a thermostat within a thermostat to help fine-tune those that temperature a little more. Excuse me. Now, this does have filters that will need to be maintained. Very easily, what you're going to do is you're going to grab here at the corners and kind of flex that plastic. That's going to allow those keepers, and then it hooks kind of hooks on the back. So let it swing down and off. With that out of the way, we're going to see both of these filters here on this side. Very easily, they have a position there for your fingers. You are going to push those in, and it can be a little troublesome. But once you've done so, you can take this, rinse it out in the sink, let it dry, and go ahead and replace it. So here we are ready to talk about kind of doing a full winterization to the unit. Now, just to kind of bring things full circle and keep in mind that by the time we've made it to this point, we have already purged all the water from the unit. We're going to follow the procedure we outlined on the exterior of the unit before we even get to this location. So, excuse me, with the unit completely empty of water, essentially, first thing we want to do is we're going to bypass the water heater, because what we don't want is we don't want to pump that water heater full of antifreeze for a couple reasons. Number one, it's a closed system. It's not the easiest to kind of rinse out or rinse that antifreeze out once we've introduced it to the water heater. And also, it would take an extra 6 gallons of antifreeze throughout the system to go ahead and make sure that that's fully winterized. So what we're going to do is you have two valves on the inflow and the outflow of the water heater. We are just going to move those into that secondary location. Essentially what we're doing is, again, cutting the inflow, the inlet of water, and the outlet. We're creating a loop in the system, and that's going to allow us to fill the system completely with antifreeze, with the exception of the water heater. So with that water heater bypassed, we have no water in, no water coming out. We're going to come here to this vacuum hose. What we're going to do is we are going to stick this directly into our bottle of antifreeze. We are then going to open up that vacuum line, and once we've done so, we're going to flip on that 12-volt water pump, and we are going to go from fixture to fixture, and we're going to open up both sides of the plumbing. That includes the outside shower, the kitchen sink, the bathroom shower, and the toilet. We're going to open up all of those, both sides of the plumbing, and we are going to let them run until we see that antifreeze make its way to the fixture. We're going to go for a few seconds longer once we've seen that antifreeze, because we want the P-traps on the way out to fill up as well. So anywhere where we are going to have water throughout the system, we want to make sure we're replacing that with antifreeze. Once we've done so, we're going to go ahead and turn this off, and then we are good to, again, store the unit for winter. Now when it comes to returning the unit back to service, what we're going to do is we are going to open up the low point drains. We're going to run quite a bit of water through the system. We want to make sure that we do evacuate all of that antifreeze and get it all out. Again, we're going to open up the fixtures, run them to that water runs clear. Same with the low point drains and all that stuff. Once we've done that, and we are fairly certain that we have evacuated all of that RV grade alcohol-based antifreeze from the system, we're then going to come back here and we're going to open up this inlet and this outlet to the water heater. The reason why we're waiting till the very end to do that is because we want to make sure that that antifreeze, again, has been purged from the system, so we are not pumping it into the water heater. Once we've done all that, of course, we can then just go ahead and replace these panels. They're held on just by a couple screws there on each side, and we'll be good to go until next year.